The work we've been doing the last 2 years is about how we learn. And it turns out it's not quite a simple answer. But there are 8 or so things that make a difference. And the work we're working on is how can we actually come up with teaching procedures in schools that can help teachers change these things. Now here's a problem. And this is the problem of 21st century schools. We cannot find any evidence that supports the notion that you can teach these things generically. They have to be done within the content. It looks different in maths and English and science and phys ed and panel beating. So all those courses on creative thinking and mind frames and all that stuff are noted by their failure if they're taught separately. Working memory is a classic example, and I mentioned that earlier. The CogMeg program, which is used in a lot of schools around the world, has an effect size of 0.98. Who could possibly be against that, he says? Except its effect when you translate that from the game into reading, writing, and maths is 0. You have to do it within the content. So the first attribute that we want to privilege is how can we give kids confidence they can learn? And this is a massive skill that you have to impact and impart on kids. That Goldilocks principle, not too hard, not too easy. And I love using Emma because at that age you can see it. By age 8 it's hard to see it because kids have learned how to mask it. How do we bring that confidence out so they enjoy the challenge? I think this work is hard, so I want to do it. Not, I think this work is hard, I'm not going to give it a go. How can we get them to want to master and value deep learning? And certainly my interest in curriculum, which is very low. Everyone who asks me to join a curriculum committee, I say I'll only join if you let me take half the stuff out of the curriculum, because that's the only way you can get to deep learning. There's only one place that's ever passed that test, so I'm on the panel at the moment for Wales, and the agreement I have with the minister is I'm allowed to take half the stuff out. Now I'm still there after 6 months. Everyone I've been on after the first meeting, they say, oh, you can't possibly take stuff out. We've got to add more in. No, I want less so we can master more. I want kids to know and us to teach them what success looks like up front. I want the students to know, as they start to learn something, how they can know how to summarize and organize, how they can know what the big ideas are. Not us giving them the summary and the organization. I want them also to know how they can invest in deliberate practice. And wow, this is something we so often miss out. And I'm sure you've heard of the Malcolm Gladwell's popularization of the 10,000 hours. How we can get kids to invest. And don't tell me you haven't got the time. Because between the ages of 5 and 15, they spend 15,000 hours in your care. We need to teach them that effort does make a difference. How can we get them then so they are skilled at being their own teachers and evaluating their own learning, so they can do that strategic updating? How can they think aloud in a safe environment? How can they think aloud in your staff rooms so you can actually hear about the processes and the impact and the kind of ways we're thinking about what expertise is? And finally, how can we detect similarities and differences between situations, which is the power of transfer? So I'm giving kids 2 problems, but before they do the problems, we say to them, what are the similarities and differences? And that dramatically increases their probability of them successfully being able to transfer. And these are the attributes of the student. And each one of them can be developed. And whilst I've spent time looking at the mind frames of teachers, I hope you can see a dramatic parallel here and how we want to teach our students to also have that same sense of mind frames. And the good news, folks, is I haven't stopped. The Visible Learning into Action book came out recently, which is 15 case studies looking at how many of you have operationalized this. And the message in that book is there's no one right way. It's a matter of how we think, not our particular way of doing. The Visible Learning into Literacy, and you'll hear from Doug Fisher, Nancy Fry, are the co-authors, and the new one coming out on mathematics and applying these to specific subjects. And the one that's coming out soon in our Science of Learning work, from laboratory to classroom. And the one that I'm going to Germany next week to work with my colleague, which I'm struggling with because we're writing it in German. Oh, I admire anyone that writes in English now from a foreign language. And it's specifically, if you know your German, looking at those 10 mind frames. And I've got a whole lot of other stuff, and you can see I'm still enjoying this stuff. I'm still enjoying doing the research, but most of all, I really do appreciate you putting it into practice. Thank you.